Okay, welcome to everyone to this third session of this R workshop, and I hope you managed to complete the previous exercises which we planned. And I also submitted one assignment for all of you. I just wanted to know how many of you managed to complete your assignment. Anyone who have completed the assignment?
I think I
Well,
did, but it would be great if we can actually go through it to be sure we did the right thing.
Yes, of course. For that, again, I cannot go through this class, but of course, you can share me our script and your data, and then I can just go through and I can let you know whether you did right. First of all, for each of the question, there is multiple way. Even I think Teman shared one of the script, and the way I was planning, but she did the same analysis, but a little bit different way. But answer is same, and that is kind of the beauty of R. It's not like you have to follow the same step for each of the analysis. You can go a little bit other way around as well, and you can also get the same answer. So of course you can share me your script. Anyone who would like to know more about their script, if it is correct answer or not, they can share me script. I will respond to you by email, but in the session I don't want to go because I want to continue with some new script. But other than that, if there is any quick comment or quick question, if someone have, I can answer right now. So my idea was
Yeah,
actually
I have a question.
yes, Hala.
Yeah, in question two, it says find the difference in ratio, and then we have the pH, and then the C% and N%. What do you mean by ratio? Like between which factor and what factor?
No, ratio is already given in one of the column. I don't remember which column number, but in one last column there is a ratio. CN ratio data is already given to you.
So we're supposed to find the difference in that column between the two groups.
Yes, that was the question
Okay.
exactly.
Because you wrote pH and CN, and I thought a ratio between different columns. Okay.
No, it's like you already got a different variable or different data in different column. And the question was to calculate the differences in that particular data, or I mean, it could be like pH, carbon or carbon to nitrogen ratio. You just need to calculate the differences between these data, between these two forest type, that is spruce versus birch. And that was the question. So basically idea is that you can actually calculate mean, you can calculate standard error, or you can calculate standard deviation, and based on that you can answer the question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And second thing, for all these kind of data manipulation, I would suggest all of you to use a subset command. It's very useful command. Of course, I saw some of the script, they have done little bit differently, but that's fine. Even answer is same. But just imagine right now you have a fewer column, fewer data. It's fine. You can play around with the script. But when you have a big data sets, then you have to use certain specific command. So for subsetting, there is a specific command called subset, and you need to make use of this subsetting. Actually, based on this subsetting command, you can subset any kind of data. For example, I don't know if you're aware about nestedness design. Anyone is aware about nestedness design or nesting design? Anyone?
Yes, doctor. In nesting design, I think we keep all the data within like main loop, some loop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for example, nesting sampling design, for example, you have big experiment, then this first experiment is divided into two category. Then each category is further divided into different category. Okay. And then each category is further divided into third category as well. So in this way, we are creating a nesting design, right? And especially the problem arises when you have a nesting design and you want to extract the mean for particular group or particular group of variable. Then you again have to use this subsetting. So subset for first variable, then for second, then for third, and then for fourth. And then you can actually collect your data back into a new variable for that particular subset. So for that, again, this subset command is very useful. There is another command called filter, but we haven't learned that. But again, you can Google by yourself. So filter also does same thing for you. in that case, you just have to use the percent or something like that symbol to subset your data again. So in the internet, for same kind of function, if you try to Google, you will find multiple options that you can execute your problems through the R. Okay. Anyway, those who have finished and if they want any input, they can send me a script. And those who haven't, again, it was not mandatory since I know many of you are already occupied. But it would be nicer if you finish this script. That will give me an idea that okay, how many actually managed to use this script for their own purposes. And you are and feel free to someone was asking me a question, can they modify and so on. So feel free to modify the script the way you like and the way you want to put the variable name and so on. And you can just reuse the same script depending on your question. Any other question before we start? Any question before we start? Okay, so if there is no question, then actually today, as I told you last time, we are going to do a lot of different type of plottings in the R. So for that, I already shared script number 5 with all of you. Anyone have received that script? Can someone confirm to me?
Yes, we did.
Okay,
Yes.
so I suggest you to put this script in the same folder where you have rest of the data, and especially the object which I share you today, the workspace, the R workspace, which I shared with you today afternoon. So both R workspace and this script, you should put it into the same folder. So for anyone who managed to finish all 3 questions so far, I haven't asked this question yet. Anyone who completed all 3 questions? I know last one is little bit tricky, but if you use certain command, it could be done. I know in the Excel sheet, many have referred that they completed first and second question, but not the third yet. Okay, so I hope everyone is ready with their R script. That is number 5 in the R Studio. Hidayah? Hidayah? Hidayah, are you there?
Yes, doctor.
Okay, so you are also with script number 5 today already?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that means everyone is ready now. So we will start with script number 5. Basically today I'm just, this is the way how we load the saved workspace. First of all, why we should save the workspace. As I mentioned to you, when you are running a one script and you know that the data, whatever function or whatever data you have used in the one script, you want to use it with another script. You can save that the whole workspace of the R in particular object that we did in the last class. That is data underscore survey underscore edit dot R dot data. And now I'm just loading the same workspace. That means if I just load this same workspace, all the variable, all the required data files, everything is automatically uploaded in the R. So I don't have to repeat the whole script again and again. Now I suggest all of you to move further from line number 10 until line number 39. And again, I hope you still remember the data set very well. Last time I shared you the instruction about the data set that you should be aware about. So in the data set, there was one column called marital. In that case, there was different category about the data, like if they are divorced, if they are living with partner, it was married first time, single, separated, widow, and so on. So that data is being recorded in that particular column. And now I just created a bar plot. Can someone tell me what is the mistake in this bar plot? What is wrong with this bar plot? Anyone? I hope you can.
Not within the range of the like y-axis.
Yeah, I mean,
We
you
have
want to
one
say,
of
yeah,
the values 188, but the given range is up to 150 in the y-axis.
or maybe you want to say that in the x-axis we don't have a full legends. Like the first is divorce, then we are missing
Exactly.
the legend for the second column and so on.
Yes.
Right, that is also a problem.
Yes.
So basically now we have to do somewhat we have to play a little bit with the graphics, then we'll fix this problem. Now how does it look like? At least you have all the details. Like the first column it says divorce, but then in the second column again some text is missing here. So basically what I did, I just change one option, that is LAS is equals to 2. That means the label along x-axis should be vertical. Okay, so that is what we did. And then I'm doing a little bit more changes to make it little better. And now I changed little bit the you can say like the location of the bar plot within this space of the graphics. I moved it little bit up, and now you can see all the x-axis legend are very clear to all of us. So the first is divorce, then second is living with partner, married first time, and so on. So now we can see all the axis detail very clearly. This par command is very handy whenever you want to change the location of graphics, or when you want to mix different panel within the one graphics and so on, then we have to use this par command multiple times. So you will get to know about this par command many times throughout today's this script. Then in line number 50, what we are doing, we are just adding one more argument, that is horizontal equals true. That means now we are having a horizontal graphics instead of vertical. So that's the way you can change the graphics the way you like. So now this graphic looks much more easily readable. So we can see all the text very clearly, and it seems much more better compared to the before the vertical graphics. So those who want to know more about the par command, you can just write help par and you can get all the details. Any questions so far? Just complete until line number 60 and let me know if someone have any issue.
Doctor, can you repeat what is meant by horizontal equals true? Why do we add that part?
Oh, it was just because if you don't put horizontal equals true, then by default it's false. So actually we have vertical graphics, but now instead of vertical, you want bar chart in horizontal form. So now it's actually getting horizontal.
Okay.
You see
So
the
by
bars are
default,
getting horizontal.
yeah, but the default of the program is to give us vertical.
Yes, that is default. Of course, you can write down like here, for example, FELSE. That will also give you the same kind of chart. But as you said, yes, default is always false. Okay, I hope you all are managing with me. Okay, then we are moving further at line number 64. That is histogram. So basically histogram is just a plot for the frequency number for a particular category or particular range and so on. So here is just like a histogram for the age. So how is the distribution of age among the participant? So we are just creating a histogram for that data. So we can see that most of the participants are in the age group of 20 to 25. And you can see through this histogram that above 70, it's only very few participants. And there is no one above 90 in this data. But now here, if you look like our axis, it doesn't look good. Here it says date, dollar, age, and here it's frequency, that's fine, and histogram and so on. So we just want to change these labels. So for that, there is a very simple command. So what I did, I just said histogram, which means plot hist means plot histogram for the age variable, and on the x-axis write age. So x-axis legend is age, and color them blue. So you got blue color, and on the main, like the title of the graphics, you just mention histogram of age. I can just write my name, so like this. So histogram Sunil of age, whatever you want. So whatever you do, you can get these details on your graphics. For example, if instead of age, you want to mention age of participants. So you will get the same detail on the x-axis, age of participants. So whatever is written down in this inverted comma, you can change it the way you want to write, or the legend which you want to write, or axis legend you want to write. Now there is a two more argument. Again, you know, this, the more argument you put, the better graphics you can make at the end. Simply, even if you just write like histogram, again histogram will appear, but then either you have to transfer this histogram to another what you can say, like Adobe Illustrator or CorelDRAW, to make it much better looking, or you can also play with R to make it even better looking right in the R itself. So now what I did, I just mentioned that, okay, X limb and Y limb. That is again two command, as I think one of you mentioned previously that Y axis was not showing the full data. Here it is showing only 80, but you can see that our data is even above the 80. So it doesn't look good, like your data is going beyond the range of the scale which you are providing. So that's why I'm just changing the scale of X and Y axis. So here I just mentioned X limb 0 to 100, which means it is starting point is 0 and ending point is 100. Likewise, Y limb 0 to 100. So starting point is 0 and ending point is 100. I can change even, okay, 1000 and 1000. See what happened. Oops, it doesn't look good because you see our graphics is just on the bottom, left bottom, a very small graphics. Again, this is not really a good way of developing a graphics for your kind of data, because I hardly can interpret anything out of this graphics. So 100 looks relatively better, but even we can make more changes later on.
Doctor, just a question. All the things that we want to change in the graph or histogram, we can only do it through the commands, right? We cannot like right click or something change.
No, again, unfortunately with R, you cannot do with right click or something like that. You have to use these kind of simple argument. And the good part is the same argument is actually applicable with all kind of graphics. For example, right now we are learning like how to write a label for x-axis. So the command is x lab equals, and then in the inverted comma you can write whatever you want. And if you are plotting another diagram, for example, you want to make a bubble plot, still the command will be same. You have to write x lab and it will give a title for the x legend or x axis. And likewise, if you want to change the X scale, then again, you can just write command called X lim. If you want to change Y scale, you can just use command Y lim always. And see, it's actually the number starting from 0 to 100. So the core command will remain always same. Doesn't matter whatever kind of plotting you are doing. Is it histogram? Is it bar plot? Is it any graphics, PCA, or any kind of graphics you are doing? The command will always be same. It's just like the first command will differ, but the internal sub command or argument will always remain same. Now here, what is the problem? Anyone can figure out what is the problem with this graphics? Does this graphic is good or enough, or do you want to make any further changes? Teman, what do you think about this graphics? Teman?
I'm not sure, Professor. Maybe the age is like the interval is written, there's a large gap. Like you cannot exactly calculate between 20 and 40. Where are the gaps? Like how much is the break of the intervals?
Yeah, okay, that's good point. So basically here what we can see that, okay, here we have a different level of interval in between these graphics. So we can change that as well. First of all, what we did, we just try to use only the graphic space. We don't want to show like this unnecessary space. Always, we have to, whenever you are developing a graphics for your paper, for your thesis, you need to make sure that you don't provide unnecessary space, because that space will be then your graphics will consume a lot of space from your paper, right? So make sure you make effective use of the space. Here we can see that from 0 until 15 or so, this space is just wastage here. Likewise, above 90, we don't need this space extra, so we have to account for that. So now you can see that the full scale is used by the graphics, and now we just convert it into different breaks. So earlier the whole data was divided into 8 or 10 breaks, but now we divided into like less number of breaks, like only 5 breaks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 columns. So we divided our data only into 8 bars. If you want, you can make even smaller, as Teman pointed out. If someone really want to know how much is the population within the age range of 30 to 32, then again you can you can increase the number of break, and you can get even more fine scale data.
What does breaks stand for? Like, what does the number mean exactly? When you type a number on breaks, what does that mean?
The breaks mean, for example, you have a data. Okay, in this data, you have 436 records. And now with the break, you are saying that sum up all these data within only 5 bars. So basically we are creating a big or small, like here in this case, we are creating a small range. So show data within this particular range. Like for example, 20 to 22 years, how many people have responded from this age group? 22 to 24, how many people have responded from this group? But if you don't want that fine scale data, you can create less number of break. So for example, in this case, what you can see that from 20 to 30, so you have a big range of the data together. So within 20 to 30 age group, how many people have responded? That is around 130 people have responded. Got the point?
I do get that, but I don't understand how the breaks equals 5 or breaks equals 30 corresponds into the graph, because it doesn't seem to be like when you type 30. I mean, if you wanted to say, I want it every 5 years, like I want the columns to be separated every 5 years. How do you translate that into the breaks?
Again, this break will calculate, first of all, the range of your data. It's actually by default command. But again, to your question, if you really want to show only for the 5-year gap or so on, right? You can do that. There is a certainly different code for that. There is possibility for sure. But this break is actually by default command to divide your data. So for example, here it's in the 5-year gap. So if I just write 10, Let's see what happened. So now I have within 5-year gap. So 20 to 25 year, more than 80 people responded. Then 25 to 30 years, around 50 people responded, and so on.
But you just typed 10. Why is it that it's separated into 5 years?
Again, this is depending on the range of your data. It has nothing to do with how many breaks you are putting in. Again, you have to check based on the range of your data. For example, if the range of your data is smaller, then you don't need multiple break. But if your range of data is very large, then you need even more break to accommodate all those data points in one graphics.
Okay, okay, thank you.
I hope everyone is here. Any questions so far? Seems quite silence. Hope everyone is there. Ali? Ali?
Yes, yes, doctor, I'm here.
So you are at histogram?
Yes, yes.
So
But
should I move forward?
I'm also similar to Laya. I'm not familiar with the breaks thing. It's new. In
Yeah,
histogram,
basically this is a by default command. Again, you can't directly translate like break means 5-year gap or 10-year gap or 30 year. You can't directly translate in that way, but this will give you an idea. For example, if you want to pull up all the data into smaller graph, smaller number of bars, or you want to pull up your data into multiple bars as like we did here. And this totally depends on the range of your data. For example, if you have really big range, then again you might need a lot of breaks. But if you have a small range, then you don't need that many breaks. You may have like 2, 3 or 4 breaks and so on. So break is just actually breaking your data points.
Yes, I see, doctor. Thank you.
Okay, now we are moving a little bit towards the color. It has nothing to teach here, but actually R provide a huge number of color to you. I don't know if you are aware that within R we have 657 different color you can plot. I'm just aware of, for example, 10 or 11 color, but in the R we already have 657 color. And not only 657 color, but if you will try to make a combination of these color, then you will have thousands of different color within the R. So you can see that how best resolution you can get from the R in terms of color. And you can make even a different type of color code by yourself by mixing certain level of intensity and color from different type of colors. So these are some of the just code just to show you how you can use it. So sky blue, you can just write sky blue in inverted comma, and then things will become sky blue. For example, I just want to use it here. So I just write sky blue. So my graphics is now sky blue. And actually there is a universal code for each of the color. Of course, we can always write sky blue in R. R does understand, but if I don't know if you are familiar with some other tools or other graphic program, they may not use this sky blue code directly as such. So you have to use a corresponding hashtag based code for that particular color. So for example, we have a code called hashtag 87CEEB, and that is actually the code for the sky blue. Okay, so in some of the program we might have to use this kind of code, but the good part with R is that R understand both kind of code, this universal code as well as this text code as well. So you can use any of the code whatever you like. And there are some websites which can also help you in identifying the code. So one of my favorite website is actually Color Brewer. I don't know if you have seen that website before. Actually, here I have given the website address. You can just copy paste on your Google browser. And through this Color Brewer, actually, I normally calculate different type of color combination for myself. For example, I have a project where I need to define 10 different color, and I would like to have a sequential color for all those 10 factors. then of course I don't remember code for all those 10 different level, but I can go to ColorBrewer and I can check what is the code for that, and I can use the same code within the R. And ColorBrewer will provide you code in this format, #87, like in this kind of hashtag format code. I don't know what to call exactly in terms of international language, but I just call it as like a hashtag color or whatever. And there are many other tools like in the Google, you have a color picker, and also we have a DuckDuckGo, and that can also use for color picker as well. And maybe you also know some other options where you can also find a suitable color for the R. And within the same color, you can always change the intensity or opacity of the color as well. Like for example, if I just write sky blue, but I can also rechange the intensity of this color by using the command called scale. So we have a scale from 0 to 255, which means you really want like a dark sky blue color, or you want like a little bit of opacity or little bit of transparent sky blue color, and so on. So based on that, you can also change the intensity level of the color. Okay, now we are moving further to the box plot. Noor, are you able to follow me? Noor? Noor, are you there? Okay, should I move further? Hello?
Yes, I think so. From my side, I don't know.
Okay, so now we are moving further. Actually, now we are doing some other kind of plotting. I was at the box plot first of all. So simply the command for the box plot is just box plot, and you can include any of the variable. And for example, if you have any factor, you can also add the factor within the box plot. So you can get multiple box plot for particular data range. We'll do that later on. And then, as I mentioned, you can just change the axis label, like ylab. Here I just put age, and the main title of the plot, I just put box plot of the age, and so on. So you can change all these text by yourself just by changing this text here. And what you just need to provide a variable for which you want to plot a box, for which you want to make a box plot. So here in this case, I provided a variable called age. So for example, in your data set, if like for example, the data set which I shared, if I want to make a box plot for carbon, I will just write carbon here, and the same plot will appear. Anyone is aware about the density plot? If someone is using density plot? Anyone is aware about density plot?
I'm not familiar with it now.
Anyone have used density plot before? Fatima? So basically, this is another way of representing your data, basically. Okay. So like earlier, we did this bar graphics and so on, but the same data is shown by the density plot. So it is showing the density of your data distribution. So here, this curve is actually showing that within the range of 20 to 30, how many variables or how many participants were there in terms of total density. Okay, so you are just calculating in terms of density. And the command is very simple. It's just the density. and you just write the name of a variable, and you can get a plot for that particular variable.
It looks like a histogram a little bit, right, Doctor?
Yes, it's indirect. As I mentioned, it's kind of a replacement of histogram. Sometimes histogram is not that informative, because if you have too much data, then histogram may not be informative. But then this density plot gives you a clear indication of your data distribution.
I see.
And another thing, when you make this density plot, actually, you know that when you have to check for a normality of your data, then this density plot is very useful. You can literally check, for example, if you have a sharp normal curve for your data or not. That will give you a direct indication that your data is normally distributed or data is non-normally distributed. So for that also, density plot is very useful.
Can you explain how this command works? Because I'm trying to do exactly the same with my own data, and it's basically flat. And you can see that the histogram is not flat, but the density line is completely flat, and I don't know how to change that.
First of all, if I can't see your data, I cannot comment on that, like why it is happening. Basically depends on how is your data distributed. For example, if your data doesn't have much variation, you got my point? If your data variation is less, then
it definitely has variation. It definitely has variation. It's just that it looks flat, and I don't know what to change. I already changed the adjust. I don't know what the adjust stands for, or the LWD. So I've been changing them, and apart from increasing the, you know, how big, how fat the line is, nothing else changed. So I don't know what everything stands for here.
Again, if you want to know more in detail, as I always mention to you, you always have to just go to that particular command and you just run the help command. That will give you, because in this class, as I mentioned, we cannot go through each and every argument, because that is going to take a lot of time for even one option. For that, it's better later on, you can also go through each and every command and you can check for the argument and what it is doing. Basically, adjust is the command.
Doctor, you are mute. We cannot hear you.
Okay, yes. So when I said this adjust command is basically doing a smoothing of your curve. Sometimes lines are not very smoothened. So for that, we just need to use this adjust command, then line will be more smoothened. That's it. So see here, this is the line right now we have, but now we did some kind of adjustment, then actually lines are getting more and more smoothened. So basically, when you say adjustment, you are lumping data from 2-3 different variables together to make it more smoothened. For example, right now we are passing through these pandemics, and many times you have seen this these kind of plots where they suggest you, okay, we have calculated mortality over 7 days period, and then after that they have plotted the curve to make a more smoothened curve. So this is what exactly they are doing here in this curve. And again, to answer your question, was it liar, right? Again, why you have that particular situation, I cannot say anything without looking at the graphics and so on. But one suggestion could be, maybe you have a little bit of less variation in your data. That's why you might get little flattened density curve.
Okay, thank you very much.
So for example, you have a bar plot, right? You already make a bar plot for your data?
Yes, I did.
So how is it this bar plot for you?
So it you know, like the second range, it looks huge in comparison with the others. And actually, when I do the plot density, you can see the line, like how it moves, you know, like it does look like a normal density plot. But when I put the density line on the histogram is when it looks flat. So that's why.
Yeah. So as you mentioned already, that second bar is really huge, right? That means your most of the data is within particular range. Okay. And when you are using this density plot, in density plot, actually what it is doing, actually, it is actually calculating a mean, or you can say like density of your data within the whole data set. And now when you have a similar amount of data, which is like say 80% or 90% representation by only one type of data, then when it is trying to calculate this density for that particular variable, it is showing only a like very flat line, for example, because of that particular variable which is over represented in your data set.
Okay, okay.
So
Now I
basically, in
understand.
that case, what I will suggest, first of all, you have to check the normality of your data set. Since more, again, I'm not going to discuss more in this class, but I just give you some indication. I think I gave you some indication in my first talk. Most of the program in statistic actually work on some assumption, which means they actually implies that your data is normally distributed. If your data is not normally distributed and you are trying to do any statistical analysis on that kind of data, then your analysis may not be appropriate. So first of all, you have to always be aware that the tests which you are using, are they parametric or they are non-parametric. So the parametric test assume that actually they don't need, the parametric test assume that you need a normally distributed data set, which means you should have this kind of curve where you have a minimal value, then you have a maximum value, and then you again have a minimum value as well. So that is the normality assumption of your data set. Non-parametric tests can work on those data which are even non-normally distributed. So for example, if you're running a statistical test, then first of all, you should be aware that what is the assumption for that particular test before you are feeding your data directly to that particular test. In your case, if you have one bar like peaking up, that means it might be possible that your data is not normally distributed. And for that, you have to actually find some way to make it normally distributed by some transformation of your data.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, now what I'm doing actually is the same graph. We have a bar plot, we have a histogram on the bottom, and on top of that, I just plotted the line for the density plot. So it shows a smoothing line. You might have seen in many of the plot, especially if you are actually looking at this statistic about the coronavirus and so on. So many types, these kind of graphics you will find up there. Especially there is a website called Worldometer. I don't know if you have been following that Worldometer, where you see a worldwide statistic of the COVID cases and stuff like that. So they have used these kind of graphics multiple times. Any question? So now we are moving to some other kind of plots, that is a scatter plot. So anyone is aware what is a scatter plots? Betty, are you aware what is a scatter plot? Betty?
Yes, doctor.
Are you aware what is a scatter plot?
Yes, doctor, but I'm not able to explain that.
It's fine. I will be helping you. Don't worry. I will be helping you.
I forgot it. Actually, I have done in Excel scattered plots.
Yes, in Excel it's quite easy. You have two variable and then you can just make a scatter plot. Basically, it's a relationship between two variable and shown by a dot, right?
Yeah. Yes,
So
it's shown by dots.
yes. So first of all, when you think about the scatter plot, you should be aware that in the scatter plot you have to provide two vector variable. Okay, it has to be vector based variable. If you have a factor, then scatter plot will not work. Likewise, when you were plotting density bar chart and so on, you are actually using vector variable. Likewise, in this case, instead of one, you have to use two vector variable. So here we are having two variable, that is PSS and POSAFF. I hope you still remember what this PSS and POSF SAFF means. These are the variable which we calculated yesterday by summing up all the PSS variable and all POSAFF variables. And now we are making a plot between these two, again, vector-based variable. For example, I'm just giving you a, my kids are here, so they are just making noise. So I mentioned to you in your assignment, there is a question, you have to find out a relationship between carbon and nitrogen and carbon and pH and so on, which means you have two vector variable and you just need to make these kind of plots. So this is showing the relationship between the one variable and second variable over X and Y axis. Of course, we are going to make it more nicer looking later on, but this is a simple representation of a scatter plot. So it is actually showing, for example, if the PSS value for one variable is like around 12, then POSS value for that variable is around, if PSS value is around 35, then POSS value is around 12 for that particular variable.
Can we add the line to show the correlation between them, Doctor?
We will do that later on. We'll go there slowly.
Okay.
Yeah. So now what I'm doing, I'm trying to make it a little bit nicer looking. So I'm just changing X legend by just changing X lab as a stressed, or I just mentioned stress Sunil, my name. So again, it's mentioned stress Sunil. So whatever you want to change in the axis or in the labels for the X or Y axis, you just write it here. It will appear in your plot. Again, this is the one way. Alternatively, you can just directly download this graphics and you can import this graphic into any of the image software like Adobe Illustrator or CorelDRAW. You can also do it there as well, but then again it is going to take your time. So try to make like the best looking graph directly in the R and use less of those other tools like Adobe Illustrator or CorelDRAW or PowerPoint and other stuff for doing image editing. Then I also change the color, and then I change the PCH. Again, this is very important and handy command. PCH is actually the shape of this this point. Here it's circle. I just change PCH to 13. Let's see what happened. Oops, I got like square or diamond like shape. I change PCH to 14, then see what happened. It's a triangle with 15. It's a like a full square, then 16 and 17. 17 is I think circle. So 17 is triangle. Likewise 18. What see? Oh, 18 is again a square, but not like a perfect square, or like it's more like a diamond. 19. What is 19? Oh, it's again the circle. So basically by changing just PSH, you can change the shape of that particular point. And again, there is a lot of way you can change these points. You can always look by using this help window. So you can find what are the other possible options you have for changing this. You can change PCH, you can change color, you can change background, size, line, length, everything you can change for this particular point. Okay, any questions so far? If there is no question, then we can continue moving further. Now, actually, we have one data called smoke. So in the smoke, there is either answer yes or no. So what I'm creating a variable. So what I'm saying, if else data, or that is $ then smoke, if smoke is equals to yes, then what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a variable. So what I'm saying, if else data, or that is $ then smoke, if smoke is equals to yes, then what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a variable. So what I'm saying, if else data, or that is $ then smoke, if smoke is equals to yes, then what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a variable. So what I'm saying, if else data, or that is $ then smoke, if smoke is equals to yes, which means for any of the variable, when the smoke is for the participant is answering yes, then give them red color. Or if they are if the smoke is not equals to yes, give them blue color. Oh, now it looks like a very nice plot. So here we have data shown into multiple format. So the blue color indicate that the people who are smoking, and the red color indicate the people who are not smoking. And we can always plot these kind of legend. You can change the legend location, top left, top right, top bottom, and so on. And you can also change by providing location like X 50 or Y 30 and so on. And it's just legend is showing. The red color indicate that these are the smoker data, and blue color indicate that this is the data for non-smoker. Any questions so far?
It's clear, Doctor.
Okay, so if this is clear, then we are again moving further. So basically in this command, that is res, that is not command, that is the name of variable. The command is xy table, and then we are just putting these two symbol like sorry, these two variable PSS and POSAFF. So what we are saying, then take these two variable and convert them into the table in the variable name res. So that is this command is indicating here. Okay, and now I have data for these variable. So you see here x and y. For example, if you have a coordinates, so latitude and longitude, you can always put this latitude here and longitude here, and you can convert them into xy table. So res. So this is the way you will have two variable within one variable. And now we are making another plot. So what it is doing, we are saying plot res $x. So you know from where this x is coming now. Okay, so that's why I'm just showing. So this x is actually here representing PSS, or y here is actually representing POSAFF, and so on, because you converted this data into XY format by using this function called XY table. Seems the circle are actually overtaking another circle, so we need to make a little bit space for rest of the circle to appear. So we are doing little bit changes. So what I did, CEX. So here I'm just changing the size. CEX means to change the size of any of the point. You can always use this function called CEX. So what I said, use the number res $number into 0.2, which means we are reducing the size by 0.2. So now all the dots are actually appearing to us, because earlier dots were quite big, so we couldn't see them, but now we can see them.
Doctor, why you are writing positive affect as PA now? Does it matter?
What does it mean?
You see in the command here, you're writing for the plot x lab equal stress, and then y lab equal PA. Before you're writing positive stress. Does that make a difference, or
It's up to us. Like I can write PA Sunil or whatever. I mean,
okay.
it's just like what variable you want to, or what data you want to show there. It's up to us.
Okay.
For example, you want to you want to write short PA, or you want to really write the full name, positive relation, or whatever. It's totally up to us. What do you think is best name for that particular axis.
Okay.
Like for example, here instead of stress, I can just mention stress value. So here it will appear as a stress value. So CAX is actually very important option. Whenever you need to change the size of a particular point, you always have to change the CEX. That means size of a particular point. So now we are actually reducing the size of a particular point by 0.2 times. If you want to make it larger, you can make it like this way. So multiply by 2. It's too big. And this plot doesn't look very effective. So I just change back to the normal. So the point looks much better. And again, if you really have a big number, then you might want to plot in like a square root number, because you know that when you do square root, then you can actually reduce the value of that particular length or something like the size of that particular point. So for that purpose, you can always use this square root command as well. And last time I told you, whenever you need to calculate square root for any of the variable, you just write command square root, that is SQRT, and put the name of variable in the bracket. There is an interesting command called jitter. What this command is doing, you know, in this plot, some of the points are actually overlapping with another points. So some of the points are actually hidden. So what we can do, if you want to show your each and every point to your reader, then you can use this jittering command. What it is doing, actually it is trying to calculate little bit variable number together with the previous number. And in that way, for example, if one point is appearing on top of another point, then they will find their own space just next to each other. And that is what this jittering command is doing. Like this. So it won't be exactly on top of the same name. For example, if the value represent 20, it could be like 20.01 or something like that. But then points will be little bit apart from each other, and each and every point will be visible to us. Again, this jittering is actually a random calculation, as I mentioned to you. For example, you write like head PSS and you write jittering. Again, it's basically a random command. So each time you do jittering, it will be a little bit different value. So maybe you want to set a seed, which means you want to always do a fixed number generation. So you can always set a seed so that your randomness will always be same throughout this plotting. Okay, I think now we can just take a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll continue with the rest of the part. And those who haven't finished yet, complete until line number 232, and then we'll continue thereafter.
Excuse me, doctor.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, in the chat, like Hala has mentioned that she's having a class, and she will do the script and email you, doctor.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, if
Yeah.
class, yeah, I think she mentioned to me as well in the email.
Yeah.
Yes, it's fine if someone is having class, and they can go and then they can come.
Yeah. And also, doctor, at that time you were talking to Noor and her mic was not working. They have mentioning in the chat.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I mean, this is another technical issue
Yeah.
which we are facing all the time. So it's fine. It was just a question just to be aware that she's also on the same stage.
Okay, doctor. Thank you.
Okay, so continue with until line number 232, who still didn't manage to finish, and then we'll start from 232 in like 5 minutes. Okay, so shall we continue?
Doctor, I have a question.
Yes.
What is this set dot seed and 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers in
Yes,
that?
actually, as I mentioned, this is some kind of random number generation. So what I said, this jittering command is actually calculating a relatively number. If you just write head PSS and then if you write head jitter. So just to give us just one moment, just one moment. Okay, so what I was mentioning is that this jittering command calculates some point randomly. So earlier it was like 29.17838, and now it is calculating 29.16085. So to avoid this randomness, again, if you will be making the same plot multiple times, you will get little bit different plot. So to avoid this randomness, we can create a seed, which means it is actually calculating this value at that particular seed value, which means it is doing randomness only 1234 times, not more than that. So whenever it is doing the same number of randomness, it will always get the same answer. So in that way, your plot will always be same. So that's why we are just setting the seed in some specific command where there is a random number calculation for a particular variable. Okay. Yes. Now we are moving further. As I mentioned to you that in R, for each of the function or for each type of analysis, you have to find out your own R package. The R package which I'm using may not be suitable for you, and the R package which you are using in your field may not be suitable for me. But whatever R package you want to use, you just need to know the name of that particular package. And there is a multiple way that you can install this R package. So the first is the command called this install.package, and you just write name of that particular package in this inverted comma. Another is on the bottom right side, there is an option called package. Can everyone see that option, package? Ali, can you see this option called package?
Yes, doctor. Yes.
Yeah. So in this package, then another option is called install. Okay. So when you click on the install and you just start writing name. So you can see that a lot of options are being shown to you. Like I just write vegan and then it's appearing. I just write A, then all the packages which are starting with A are listed here. B, then again A, B, Abacus, ABC. There are multiple packages. So you just write the name of that package and you can directly install this from here. And for installing, you always need an internet connectivity since it is going to directly install from the Crane website. Okay, so you need a internet connectivity on your laptop, and you can install any of the program directly in your R, and then that package will be compatible with your R environment. So these are the two different ways by which you can install the program. Most important point, it's not only installation. Of course, you have to install all the package, and then you have to also call your library as well. For example, here I did installation of one package called package underscore name. Then whenever I need to use this package, I have to call it again. So how to call them again? I will just write library and the name of that package. So library, here I'm just writing hex bin. So here I'm just using a little bit complicated command. So this command says, if this program is already installed, not program, sorry, package, that is hex bin. If hex bin is already installed, then the suppress installation of this program. Sometimes we forget that, okay, if this program is already installed or not, and we don't want to install because installation sometimes take maybe a few minutes as well, and you don't want to waste your time. So you can just mention suppress installation. In that case, if program is already there in your R environment, then it will not start installation. But if it is not there, it will do installation. And once program is installed, then each time you're going to use this library, you have to call it. By default, when you start your R, it is actually showing you a base R. Okay. And whatever library, whatever packages you want to use in your R, you have to call it again. And the function is library and name of package. Here, library hex bin. So hex bin is the package which we are going to use further. So what is this hex bin? So now we are moving further. We'll see what this hex bin is doing. Actually, this is some kind of a graphical package by which we can make some nicer graphics. So again, what we are doing, anyone can tell me what we are doing in the line number 255? Someone who haven't spoke in the class, Aisha? Aisha? Aisha, do you hear me? Aisha, do you hear me? And there is one profile where I don't see any name. Just ask to unmute.
Doctor?
Yes.
Yes. Do you need to do anything?
No, I was just trying to communicate with one person. I don't see his name here, but I just see picture. I just wanted to know whether he's following or not, or where he's actually.
Okay.
So I was trying to unmute from here. Okay, Mohammed Nazi, are you okay now? Mohammed Nazi? Seems he seems busy in scripting. Okay, so we are moving further. So what it is doing, I just go back to the plot. It's making nicer plot. So here you see some plot with some frequency distribution. Basically, it's the same kind of data which you used earlier, right? But now, in addition to the point, it is showing some kind of difference in the color based on the frequency. Okay, so the darker color means higher frequency for that particular value or variable. So, and the gray color means less frequency, like 1 to 7. So actually you are creating this frequency in the color to better visualize your data. Because with the previous graph, we just know, okay, with the 45 positive effect, we have that many stress value. But then we don't know exactly how many times that data is being represented in your data set. So for that, you can use this kind of graphics. It is actually automatically calculating the location of the point as well as its frequency as well. And both the data is shown on the same plot. This is another way you can make use of these graphics. You can just change like what do you want to show in this plot. And one of the interesting part which I told you previously, you can always create some kind of transparency in your color. So for that, the option is color is equals to RGB, and you can change this scale by yourself. Okay, so like RGB, then we provide 4 scale. Okay, like 0, 0 and 0.2. So according to this scale, it will create a transparency of your color. And if you want to know more about this RGBA color transparency, you can read on Wikipedia page by yourself to know more about how to create this transparency in your color and how this code works, for example. Now, someone was asking me, how about plotting a line, regression line, I mean. Yes, we can plot. So what I'm doing, I'm just trying to do some simple calculation for the line. It doesn't look so good. So what it is doing, actually, it is just calculating some value for the X and Y, right? And then we are going to feed that value. We have just clean up that variable. Oh, okay. One thing I forgot to mention. Now we are moving one step up. Here I mentioned PDF. Okay. So what it is doing, PDF, then small bracket, then inverted comma, and the name of plot. Plot underscore stress underscore versus underscore POSAFF.PDF. And then I executed a command for the plot, and then I wrote dev.off, which means I have to stop the plotting. Now I done this one. Actually, the plot is directly there in your folder. Can you check your folder and confirm me if you got the plot? Anyone who got the plot can confirm me if they got the plot or not. The plot should be in your folder, in the same folder where you started your R script.
The same plot that you have right now?
No, it should be different one, but at least you should have one plot there, right?
Yes, but not I have the same one as you have now, not the one you're referring to.
No, did you get one plot on your folder?
Let me check.
Yes, check your folder.
Yes, doctor, I got the plot.
Okay, and this is very interesting command. Whenever you need to export some files, some graphics in PDF or EPS or PNG, and this kind of format, you can directly use this command called PDF. You can change the size. Again, you can check out about the option by yourself later on. You can change the size. For example, standard column formatting for a paper is 90 by 90 mm, right? So you want to create this plot for one column only. You want to create this column for, this plot for 2 column or 1 column. Accordingly, you can change the size. Another important point of R, all the plots which you are actually exporting from R, they are of high quality, which means more than 600 DPI resolution. So you can directly use it for publication purpose. But of course, sometime when you want to use it for publication purpose, you have to make sure that you are producing a plot which is required or which is as per their standard calculation. For example, if the plot is for 1 column, then it has to be within the width of 90 mm. If the plot is for 1.5 column, then it has to be within the limit of 120 mm. If plot is for 2 column, then it has to be, for example, 90 plus 90, 180 mm, and so on. And this you have to calculate by yourself. And whenever you are generating plot, you have to mention here with the command called PDF. So you can check that with the PDF, there are multiple options here. Okay, and later on you can check like how to change the size of the PDF and so on by yourself. Most of the time, okay, just am I lost here? Most of the time, if you want to generate a graphics which you want to edit later on in your any of this Adobe Illustrator or CorelDRAW file, you can always transfer your plot into the EPS format. That is a vector-based image format, and this vector-based image format can be readily imported into your another plotting program, and you can do further editing. You can always transfer your plot into the PNG format, or the most interesting is the TIFF format, since most of the journal would like to have the plots either in PDF or in TIFF format, the final version of the plot either in PDF or in TIFF format. But in case you want to do any further modification, you would like to have the plot in PDF or in EPS format. And whenever you finish the plotting, make sure that you always write this command called dev.off. Otherwise, your plotting will be continue. Unless you write this command, your plotting will continue onto the same graph. And you can change the name of graph as you want, or whatever name you want to give to your plot, so that you can easily identify these graphics by yourself. I hope everyone got all these plot, like PNG plot or tip plot and so on. Anyone who didn't get the plot in their folder yet?
I'm not getting the last format, JPEG.
JPEG. So maybe it's a mistake here. Just a moment, I'm checking. Okay, I'm getting at least. I don't know why you are not able to get it. It's not JPEG. Even you write the command called JPEG, but the extension will be .jpg only.
Yeah, I just got it. I don't know why. Just now.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes this plotting takes time depending on the speed of your computer. Okay, so you press this command here, but to transfer this plot from R to your computer might take few seconds as well, depending on the the how complex is your graphics. Accordingly, it might take some time. Usman, are you there? Usman? Since he is not. Samir? Samir? Samir, are you able to follow here? Okay, maybe busy in his own scripting. Anyway, we'll continue. If everyone got the plot, then we'll continue further. Anyone who didn't get the plot yet in their folder? Okay, so it seems everyone got the plot. Since no one is responding here, so I will continue. So now actually I'm going to work with another library called MAS, capital M, capital A, double S. Okay, since this MAS library is actually inbuilt with R. This was the first package which R developed, and it is actually part of the core R package. So you don't have to install it directly. But this MAS package does really nice analysis, statistical analysis, and some nice graphics as well. And it's free, of course. We can really use it, and we don't have to install it again and again. So what we are doing, again, it's doing some kernel density estimation. Maybe someone who is from geology. Anyone who is from geology? Anyone who is from geology department? I thought there was someone from geology department as well. Okay, so basically it's the same kind of plot. We are doing some density estimation, but again, this is a probabilistic estimation based on two variable. So what we are doing, we are just calculating some density estimation for two variable, that is BAT PSS. Sorry, the variable name is PSS, and the another variable name is POSAFF. And these kind of plots are very useful. For example, you want to plot a terrain, and for that terrain you have a temperature variable. Okay, you want to plot a map of for example UAE, and within this UAE you want to plot the variability in the temperature or variability in the moisture. So you have a data for the moisture, and you have a data for the location, and you want to plot that one. So for that purpose you can use this kind of kernel density estimation. So it will give you a probabilistic estimation of your data, and it will give you in a visual format. We are going to do that just after this command. So now it seems it's giving me error. Anyway, it's just showing missing or infinity value. That's fine for us. Okay, so I just mentioned don't use any missing value, and I hope it should be able to give us calculation now. Yes, it does. And now we are going to make some nice contour plot. Anyone know what is the contour plot or contour? I don't know how to pronounce it, but contour plot or something. Anyone have used these kind of plots? Okay, I can just mention how these plots are useful. They are very useful to show the distribution of the data or distribution of a particular variable along two axes. Okay, so what happened? It's actually doing a certain GLM analysis inbuilt. I'm not going to speak about that at the moment, but what it is doing, actually, for example, consider one situation that on the x-axis you have x variable or latitude. On the y-axis you have y variable, that is longitude. Okay, and now you want to show the nitrogen level among different sites within this range of latitude and longitude. And now with this contour line you can represent your nitrogen variability or nitrogen level, and within the base you can plot these location of your sampling site. So in this way we can identify where we have higher amount of nitrogen, in which side we have lower amount of nitrogen, and so on. So based on this plot, it's very clear now that okay, in this central region we have a higher value. No, yes, in the central region we have a little bit higher value, but if you go on to the bottom we have little lesser value for that particular variable. So it's quite easy to calculate or understand the pattern of your data within these particular locations. It's just again we are just doing a different level, we are just increasing the distribution level of your data, so we just increase n level 14 instead of the default one. We can do this kind of color to this kind of contour line, so it's quite visible. So for example, it is clearly showing that this particular variable is having higher value with warm color, that is the red color, and the lower value, that is with the yellowish color. So it's quite easy to identify the distribution of your variable. Same thing, you can change the color with the gray color set. You can change any kind of color combination, like earlier it was topo dot color, and now I'm just using gray dot color. Basically these are the color palette which are inbuilt in your R. You don't have to create this one, but they are inbuilt in your R. You just have to refer them, what kind of color combination do you want. Okay. No, to make even more fancy plot, we have another library called Viridis. So now we are installing this another library called Viridis. It has much more color option. So for example, for the same plot, you can get even nicer plot now. Okay, I hope everyone is able to follow until line number 392.
It's clear from your explanation, Doctor, but I don't know why the plot is not coming for me. I'm trying to fix it, but it's not. As you
Okay,
said, you are not here
again,
without-
you need to make sure that whether you install the library or not.
Maybe I didn't install it. Yes.
Yes, you have to install the library, and not only install, as I mentioned, you have to call the library again. So maybe if you have just installed and you haven't called this function called library and name of the package is not in your R environment yet. Of course, you have installed the package, but it doesn't mean that program is in your environment. You have to bring that package in your environment first.
Okay, Doctor, I'll try doing that.
Okay, now we can create some 3D plots. So here basically is the same data shown into the 3D resolution. So you can just see these kind of 3D plots for the same data, showing the stress versus positive effect versus density. And still keep it in mind, we still only have the same data called RES, which we created long time back, like here in this line number 341, we created this this data RES. And you can always check what this RES represents. Just write RES, it will show you all the data related to this RES. See where we were, yeah. So then these are some of the calculation. I think you should be able to go by yourself later on. This is just calculating different, for calculating the color value, we are just rescaling the values of the data to make some nice color graphics. Okay, so here you can see how this color distribution is showing. So it is showing that under the lower stress, we have a higher density here. Here. And now we are cleaning up all these variables by ourselves. Okay, and now we are just moving further. These are different plots. You can actually check by yourself later on. I just wanted to show you something at the moment, that is subplot things. At line number 438. I hope everyone is at line number 438. This is again one useful function which everyone will need at some time point when they're going to do plotting through the R. Line number 438. Okay, so basically, as you know, sometimes we have to make a multiple panel within the same plot, because sometimes journal will tell you, okay, we can publish only 5 figure. If they can publish only 5 figure, and if you have 7, how are you going to accommodate all those figure in your paper? So the one option is that you can make multiple panel within one figure, and that is allowed. So even though you have a 2, 3 or 4 panel, but you only have one figure now, so then still you are within the range of that particular number of figure required by the journal. So you can make this kind of panel. Again, sometimes you have some very relevant data plots which you want to show them together. Okay, so one on the left and one on the right and so on. You don't want to show them separately. For that, again, you have to create multiple panel within the same figure. So how we can create that? So for that, option is called as par and mfro, which means the number of row and the column. So what I'm mentioning here, that C2, 2, which means 2 column, sorry, create 2 column and 2 row, which means I can have a 4 figure within this panel. And now I just mentioned PAR, did some calculation of the sizing for this plot, and I just plotted it. So now you see in my R window, you can see that only one plot is there, and that is on the left corner, left upper corner. Then again, there is one bar plot, that is number B, and that is on the right corner. Then there is a jitter plot, that is on the left corner, and then there is another smooth scatter plot, that is on the right corner. And then finally, I just mentioned dev dot off, which means my plotting is stopped. Again, I can select everything and run all together like this. I didn't get my plot yet. I don't know why. Retry. Okay, hit close. Okay, I hope everyone got their 4 panel within one figure now. Now, if you want to have only one column and 3 figure in that one column, how you will make this code for the par? Anyone? You
Can
want to
repeat
have,
the question?
yes, Ali?
Can you please repeat the question?
You want to have only one column and 3 panel within one column. How you going to code for that in your par option? That is line number 442.
You will put 1 and C equal 1, then comma 3.
Exactly, which means 1 column and 3 row. And likewise, if you just want like a 3 column and 1 row, so it will be 3 comma 1, and accordingly your figure will be changed. So that is the next option. You can check that by yourself. So I created 3 layout. This is another way as well. So I need one figure is quite long, so I just need to show it in like a full frame, and 2 figure are smaller, and I just show them separately. So now I have 1 full figure on the top and 2 small figure, or not figure, panel, I would say panel, and 2 small panel on the bottom. Okay, should we continue? I think now it's quite easy for all of you. You can actually run this command by yourself. It's quite easy. It's basically what it is doing. Actually, what we are doing, we are subsetting our data into 2 different variables. One is for the male population and another is for the female, into 2 different variables called date.m or date.f. And then we are using this subsetted data for the plotting purpose, like this. And then I just created a plot. Again, I forgot to do this deviation up. I should do this first. Okay, and now I'm just doing this plot for the female data set. So now here we are having 2 different type of data. One is for the male, that is shown by the blue color, and one is for the female, that is shown by the red color. And you can add the title called stress versus positive effect. Always, if you want to give the ab line for the center, you can do that. Legend, yes, you always should want to like have a legend. The option is very simple, just write legend and give the position of the legend and what you want to write. Legend C, the text is female and male, the color is red and blue, the shape you want is 19 and 19, that is circle, and inset point 2, which means inset, not insect, sorry, inset point 2, which means like you want to create this what you can say, like boundary for this particular legend. And now I'm creating this regression line. Again, for that you can directly calculate it, but otherwise you can also do this mathematical calculation by yourself. And now based on this data, what it shows, that with lesser stress, it has positive effect onto the people, and those are of course happy when they have less stress. And with higher stress, that is maybe academician, they always are under the stress and they have less positive effect. Yeah, so this is just like what you want to interpret your data, the way you would like to interpret your data. Okay, any question?
I have a comment, Dr. Rani, not a question. I think this program in general, like it's having so many options and you can do so many things. But the only issue is with the commands. Like I think we don't have to memorize them as you told us. We can just simply Google them. But I think it's like a little bit time consuming. Like we need to keep for everything we want to do. We have to Google the thing and put it. But I think with time, when we get used to it, it will be like as if you are doing right now. You know what you do. You just put the command and خلاص, everything is clear. يعني.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned you previously, see, initially you will find little difficult, but as I mentioned, the beauty of R is that all the packages, all the information are freely available. There are a lot of tools. And for example, if you want to repeat one analysis, you just saw one analysis in one paper. And if the paper is from good quality journal, definitely they have deposited their R script as well somewhere. You can find that R script and you can download that and you can modify it as per your requirement. So my idea is that you should know how to actually modify some of the script. You don't have to write each and every script right from the scratch at the moment. I know all of you are in the similar situation as like me. I'm also not able to write each and every script right from the scratch. But what I do, sometimes depending on what kind of analysis I need to do, I try to search something relevant analysis or relevant method or tools in R, and then I just execute that with the raw data or with available data, and then I try to use that for my data, and then I reformat the script according to my own requirement. And that is okay. You can always rechange the script as per your own requirement. And for that, what you just need to know some basic option, like how to do these simple changes. For example, in that case, maybe they just wanted to have the point size of 1, but here in your plot, you want to have point size of 3. Then in that case, you should know at least how to make those changes. Then you can have a different shape, different size, different points, and so on. Initially, you may find it little bit tricky and little bit difficult, but I'm sure with the time, again, initially you need little bit more practice, but with the time you will manage to find your own script and you will manage to edit and modify your own script, like for multiple purpose. For example, if I consider my field, now I have most of the scripts with me. Whatever analysis I need, I know that I have some type of script with me. I can reuse that same script and I can use it for some other kind of analysis now. Initially, it was a struggle for me to find those scripts and to use it for my own purpose or for my own kind of data. But now I know that it's quite easy and quite handy, and we can find it because at least I know how to change, how to alter the things within the R environment. And that is what the idea of this course. At least you should be aware that how this R works. And once you are aware, and most of the packages, for example, you want to use one particular package and then you don't know how to start with that package. Most of the packages comes with their own script, their own dummy data set. So you can download their script, you can download their data set, and you can actually make a trial run with their own data set. And then you see how does this work. And then you can try to adapt that script for your own kind of analysis. You got my point, Ali?
Yes, yes. I think that's the starting point where we actually try the data on different, as you said.
Yes, I mean, it's very important. It's very important whenever you find some interesting package, you should run that package with the trial data set, and later on you can use the same package for your own data.
Yes, yes.
Just one moment. I have to put my charger. The battery is running out. Okay, any other question?
Yes, yes. In some comments, it gives me like figure margins are too large. How can I solve this?
I gave you one option there. There are multiple options you can do that, but one of the option I gave you, I think I don't remember in which line number, that you have to just change the par setting or something, which
Okay.
means how and where you want to make this plot. Like you want to change the location of the plot and so on, right? So for that, you just have to use this command called par. Again, for example, now you got this issue, it's Mozan, you got this
Okay.
issue. You can try to, Google this issue by yourself and try to ask Google, okay, figure margin is too large for R, how to change. You will definitely find some suggestion or some help resources window and so on. But here, I think I gave one suggestion how to change this issue. And again, when you want to transfer this figure in your laptop, like as an export command, I told you, there you can again change the size of your figure. That can also solve this issue if your figure margin is too large. So for example, you write this command called PDF. Along with PDF, you can change the size or length or width of the figure. And that base you can also account for this issue. Any other question?
Doctor, I have a question.
Yes.
I'm doing masters in molecular biology. Like, I was hoping RStudio helping me in drug design and stuff like that. Is there some codes for drug design?
Again, this is not really my expertise, but I'm definitely can say that if you'll try to code for like R packages for the drug design, definitely there are some packages. You just have to Google it and you will find some relevant package for yourself. As I mentioned, R is really developing in all different kind of fields, even the coding, even the programming in different languages, bioinformatics, drug designing. Now, many of the bioinformaticians are not using nowadays this Python language. They can readily use R for their own purpose. Likewise, definitely there should be some packages. But again, I have no idea because I never worked with those kind of field before. But you just have to simply Google it and maybe you'll find some relevant packages for that.
Thank you, doctor, so much for the training. It was really useful.
Thank you. Very good to hear that you find it useful.
Is there any forum or anything specific that you recommend for us to ask questions about R on the internet?
Again, in internet, when you will look for any of the issue, any of the problem, you will find that there are a variety of resources available. And there is a one good website called DataCamp. I don't know if you are aware about that, but this is little bit paid version. They will provide you all sort of training in R, whatever you require. Okay, like for example, as Samir mentioned that he need to learn something about drug designing and so on. Maybe just look at the DataCamp webpage. If they have this kind of any module or this kind of program or training related to the drug designing, you can definitely attend those training through the DataCamp. There is some cost, but I think the cost is really not too much, and someone can definitely attend and take those courses through the DataCamp, and maybe you can learn your own stuff through the DataCamp. And about the issue, whenever you encounter any kind of issue, you will try to Google it, and when you will try to Google it, you'll find lot of help forum available for the R. And if you will post some question, definitely someone is going to answer your question. Even though, for example, in the Facebook, in the Twitter, we have a lot of these kind of groups where I have some issue, I just post it there and then someone will suggest me how I can solve this issue. For example, I'm doing some data modeling and then I don't understand how exactly I should do. I'm trying, but I just wanted to make sure that my code or my model is correct for this kind of analysis. And then I just post this code there and then I'm asking someone, okay, if someone can give me recommendation, then definitely someone who have experience, they will be giving me answer that whether my code is correct, whether my way of analysis is correct or not. So just try to Google, simply Google, you will find your answer for sure. And this is, I would really like to say that the R help forum is really big as because scientific community using R is quite big. That's why you will really find help for each and every aspect of R. again, I have some limitation that, okay, if someone will ask me, okay, what kind of suitable web pages to learn the analysis and so on, I can just recommend only those web pages where they are doing analysis related to my own research field, right? I may not recommend, as like Samir was asking, something related drug designing. I never done this before, and I never looked on those R packages doing these kind of jobs. So that's why I'm not aware about the packages, but definitely there are such packages. But for that, you just have to simply look at the R or their help forum. Any other question? Okay, so if there is no further question, then we'll stop here. And I think I have one more assignment left. Instruction you already have for the assignment number 2. And assignment number 2 is based on the script number 5. So try to link that assignment with script number 5 and try to get the answer. Still, even though our course or workshop is finishing today, but I'm expecting that all of you are going to respond me via this shared Excel sheet, so that at least I know that, okay, how many of you really have completed both assignment number 1 and assignment number 2. Just to announce, whenever I will be announcing this intermediate level training, then I will really pay attention to those who have completed all the assignment, who have completed all the scripts, and then only those people will be allowed to take part in the intermediate level courses. So make sure that you just still give me updates via shared Excel sheet, so I'm aware that who are really completing all those scripts, who are really completing all those assignments. This will give me an idea to create some intermediate level training at later stage. Okay, I think now I'm done, and floor is yours, Metha.
Yes, doctor. So if they have any questions, can they ask now? Like, because this is the last session.
Yes, I tried to ask many times, but I think no one have a question, or maybe it's already too late.
They will email.
Yeah, they can write me email as well later on.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you for your time and for preparing these things. It was very organized and very useful. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks that you like it and you find it more.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Doctor.
Sure. So I think our workshop is stopping today, but I'm sure that whatever you learn in this course, actually it's a very kind of small amount, whatever you can learn from the R. Definitely you should continue with R. Try to find out the analysis, try to find out some more useful stuff from the R, some more useful packages from the R, and definitely it is going to help you further in your PhD progress. One thing I really would like to mention, many of you are in your graduation, I mean in your PhD level, and in future whenever you are going to apply for next position, it could be postdoc or something else. Nowadays it is kind of some of the requirement, I mean it's indirect requirement, that in some of the job advertisement they will ask you, do you have expertise through the R and so on. So keep it in mind. Once you will learn during your PhD work or PhD period, definitely it is going to help you throughout your career. So make sure that you make a habit of R and try to find some script, try to run some dummy data, and try to make use of R as much as possible. And that's the only way that you can learn the R. More you practice, more you are going to learn by yourself. Because there are thousands of packages and 100,000s of script. No one can teach you all the script by themselves. Rather, it's like you just have to download, you just have to run it, and you just have to try to find the answer by yourself. There is a help command to know more about the command or know more about the function and how you can alter this option. In the help command, you will find that what are the different arguments you can use for changing that particular function.
Yes, Doctor. Thank you so much, Doctor, for sparing your valuable time to give hands-on experience on statistical analysis using R. I am pretty sure that the students also learned a lot and they got a good practice in this. So thank you so much. And also, I would like to remind the attendees about the feedback form. So I already put the link to for the feedback form. Again, I'm putting this. So we would be much grateful if you give your feedback on this session. So I think from here now we can stop the workshop. Doctor, you have something else to tell them?
Yes, so basically thanks to you, of course, hosting throughout these 3 sessions, and of course thanks to the CGS team for helping me with this workshop, and of course thanks to all these wonderful participants who keep their energy high, and without them, of course, this workshop is not possible, and they still find this program very useful for them, and they keep their energy always up for this particular learning. I know that things would have been much better if we are into the face-to-face mode. Then at least we can have more nicer discussion together. But still, it's good that you still manage to follow. Like we still have like almost 22 participants who are following even with virtual session. So that's even wonderful. Because initially I thought if it will be virtual, maybe we will not have that many audience. But it's good to see that all of you are still here and still showing your interest. And my last line is only keep your interest up with your art, and it is going to be your very good friend in your future and definitely going to help you a lot. Thank you very much to all of you.
Inshallah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor.